Dear Dhamma friends, welcome to our weekly guest lecture series, week 10. Today's topic is titled Buddhism and Global Society, presented by our special guest speaker, Professor Kapila Abhayawansa. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. Please mark your calendar every Thursday at 6 p.m. to get benefited from this guest lecture series. Kindly check with Dhamma USA YouTube channel and Facebook page and Facebook groups for more updates. I'm going to give you now a short biography of our guest speaker for this evening. Professor Kapila Abhayawansa is a Buddhist scholar specializing in Pali, Sanskrit, Buddhist philosophy, and Western and Indian philosophies. He graduated from the University of Paradena, Sri Lanka. He also obtained a Master's of Philosophy from Banaras Hindu University in India and a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. He is currently a permanent professor holding the post of the Dean of the Faculty of Religious Studies, the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, and at the International Buddhist College in Thailand. And recently, he was awarded the honorary degree of the Doctor of Letters by the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies at University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka, in recognition of his contribution to the field of Buddhist studies. Welcome, Professor Kapila. It's an honor to have you here with us today. Thank you for taking the time to share some of your knowledge to all of us. This lecture will bring advantage surely to our Dhamma friends from around the world. And without further ado, I would like to invite you to start your presentation on today's topic, Buddhism Global Society.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Dear Dhamma friends, good evening to everybody. It is a pleasure for me to participate in this guest lecture today on Buddhism and global society. I am very much thankful to Venerable Sumit for inviting me to conduct this Dhamma talk. I also must thankful to the organizers for sharing Dhamma through Dhamma US. It is undoubtedly a great service to the entire community of the world. As we all know, the gift of Dhamma is the highest gift among all other gifts. Dhammadanang Sabbadanan Jinati. The title of the Dhamma talk today is Buddhism and Global Society. As we all know, we are living in a global society. We all are the members of that global society. As a result of the globalization movements, different societies in the world have become a common society as one single whole. Not like in the past, today we are very close to each other. Because of this proximity, we all have to face equally good results. Anything good or bad can reach us very quickly because of the development of technology. Both good and bad come to us in a very attractive way. Sometimes bad is quicker in prevailing than good. Many bad things come to us in the guise of good. Our different cultures are gradually assimilating global culture. It is difficult for us to retain our inherited traditional cultures. Now we are on a common platform. We cannot escape from the developing and prevailing global crisis. As we are in such a global society, it will be interesting and important for us to understand how Buddhism effect, effective and meaningful to the members of the global society. One can ask a question as to how Buddhism is relevant to the present global society when the Buddha presented his doctrine to the people who lived in isolated societies, even without having a notion of global society. Indeed, the people who listened to the teachings of the Buddha did not live in a global society. They did not have advanced communication technology or information technology. They did not have a globalized economic system. Their structures and their cultures and civilizations were confined and limited to their geographical territories. In brief, they did not experience the repercussions of a global society. It is also true that the Buddha preached his Dhamma to different people for 45 years without occupying one permanent place and traveling from village to village, town to town, state to state, which were not connected to a globalized system. But there are two important factors that we must not forget. They are human nature and the nature of the world. Let us first consider human nature. What are the characteristics of human nature? One of the characteristics is the desire to be happy and repugnant to suffering. The Buddha nicely pointed out this saying, Sukhakamai Manussa Dukkha Patikula. This nature of man does not depend on time and space. It does not change from time to time or space to space, and it is a universal characteristic of humanity. There is no difference between a member of the modern global society and a member of a tribal society in the past. So, uh, the Buddha properly realized this intrinsic nature of man and presented his teachings compatible with it. Once the Buddha mentioned that he preached formally and preaches now itself only two things, namely suffering and cessation of suffering. Pubbevaham anuruddha etaraicha dvayang vadami. Dukkhancha dukkha nirodhancha. This means that the Buddha presented his teachings throughout his entire missionary career mainly to show how suffering arises and how suffering ceases to be. In other words, the teachings of the Buddha primarily aims at the achievement of happiness and overcoming suffering. All Four Noble Truths are included in these two teachings. When we examine the teachings of the Buddha, it can be easily understood that the Buddha addressed the people to show them the two kinds of suffering to be eliminated to achieve happiness. One is individual suffering and the other is social suffering. Each of us, spite of time and space, acquire individual suffering due to our birth in the samsara. Until the destruction of birth, we cannot escape from individual suffering. Social suffering arises due to structural violence or the violence of injustice and inequality. Social relations and the arrangement of economic, political, legal, and religious or cultural matters in the society lead to social injustice such as caste, patriarchy, slavery, apartheid, poverty, discrimination, exploitation, and so on. This kind of social injustice or violence makes people deprived of social privileges. Therefore, thereof, they become the victim of social suffering. They have to suffer a lot of mental and physical pain as an outcome of different social injustice. It is no need to say that both individual suffering and social suffering equally existed at the time of the Buddha and as well as existed in the present time. There is no difference between the suffering that the people experienced at the time of the Buddha and the suffering that we are experiencing today. Therefore, if the Dhamma was effective and meaningful to the life of the people in the past, there is no doubt it is equally effective and meaningful to the life of the people who are living in the present global society. Another characteristic of humanity, which has no difference in time or space, is that man is incomplete, insatiable, and enslaved to craving. Uno loco atitto tanhadasu. Man always suffers from lacking something. Though however much he has, his desire cannot be fulfilled. Therefore, he is running further and further searching, just like a horse running after the carrot. According to Buddhism, the cause of suffering is craving. Even though craving causes suffering, man is reluctant to give it up due to his enslavement to craving. Craving for the sensual pleasure of man is so strong that by the shower of gold coins, sensual desire cannot be satisfied. Na kahapana vassena tittikamesu vijjati. This nature of man is quite evident in the people living in the present global society. As a result of the globalization process, the nature of man is quite, as a result of the globalization process, many consumer products are coming to us in a way that we are blindly compelled to acquire them. They increase our desire to consume them. Finally, we are led to overconsumption which gives rise to different miserable situations. On the other hand, overconsumption leads to self-indulgence and on the other hand, it causes self-mortification. When a group of people practice self-indulgence due to their desire for unsatiable, another group of people necessarily falls into self-mortification because of the limited resources in the world. That is why the Buddha advised us to avoid both these extremist lifestyles. Now let us consider the nature of the world. One of the characteristics of the world is that the world is unprotected and it has no external Lord to protect the world. Attano loko anabhisaro. This was pointed out by the Buddha in the Rattapala Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. This is the universal truth revealed by the Buddha. The reality of this is quite confirmed by different disasters constantly happening in the world despite time and space. The ideal example of this is the COVID-19 pandemic, which was prevailing almost all over the world. The world has been suffering a lot. We lost thousands of people due to the affliction of the COVID. Many countries are facing an economic crisis, causing many people to leave their livelihood. If there is an external protector, he is never allowed to have this dangerous pandemic which led to a massive disasters. This is the reason why the Buddha pointed out one indeed is one's own refuge. How can other be a refuge to one? Attahi attano nato kohinato parosya. This is quite true concerning our physical and spiritual development. If one is protected by oneself, one protects others also. Attanang rakhanto paran rakkati. In the same way, by protecting others, one protects oneself. Paran rakhanto attanang rakkati. When there is this mutual protection, any society, whether global or tribal, happiness would be assured. Another universal characteristic of the world is that the world has nothing of its own. Everything has to be left behind. Atsako loko sabbam pahaya gamaniyo. These characteristics represent the three universal characteristics of conditional things. Those are impermanence, suffering, and soullessness. Anicca, dukkha, and anatta. All these characteristics of man and the world never become otherwise. They exist forever with the man unless he transcends himself in a way that he can transcend the world. For this purpose, one has to follow the path leading to the cessation of suffering. That is both kinds of suffering, namely individual suffering and the social suffering. As I explained earlier, We, the members of the global society, are not perfect beings who are without individual suffering and social suffering. Therefore, there is no need to say that Buddhism is more relevant to the present global society, which can increase the craving more easily in the mind of people than in the past. Now it is important to consider the path leading to the cessation of both kinds of suffering, pointed out by the Buddha, because we are the people who inherited the nature of desiring happiness and repulsing unhappiness. The path which eliminates suffering is known as the Noble Eightfold Path, Aryo Attaiko Maggo. This is also known as the Noble uh, as the Middle Path because it avoids both extremist lifestyle, namely self-indulgence and self-mortification, Atta Yoga and Kamasukhallikanu Yoga. These two lifestyles can easily be seen in the so-called global society. On the one hand, we can see some people who are leading luxurious life, excessively satisfying their senses. They can do so because they have gathered an enormous amount of wealth by hook or crooks. On the other hand, we also can see some people who are unable to find at least their meals. They are the people who have to experience self-mortification. Because of the lack of income and productive resources to ensure sustainable livelihood, and they have no other way to maintain their lives. They suffer a lot due to hunger and malnutrition, limited access to education and other basic requirements, social discrimination and exclusion. The Buddha presented the middle path. By following it, one can avoid not only both extremist lifestyle, but also eliminate both kinds of suffering. To know how the middle path or noble eightfold path work for the expected result, we have to examine each constituent factor of the noble eightfold path. The, the first factor is the right view or right vision, that is called Sammaditthi. This is the most important factor without which other factors would not be right. That is why the right view is considered to be the forerunner of all other factors. What do you mean by right view or right vision? It is the right view of the true nature of all the beings in the world. What is the true nature? It is none other than the conditional or causal existence of the being. This avoids the two extremely wrong views, namely eternalism and nihilism. Eternalism affirms the internal, uh, eternal or permanent existence, while nihilism affirms the utter destruction and non-existence of the being. Buddhism rejects both these wrong views and accepts causal or conditional existence, which is the middle path, which transcends two extremes. Under this conditional existence, Buddhism affirms the sansaric existence of the being and the influence of wholesome and unwholesome actions known as kusala and akusala karma on it for its happier or miserable existence respectively. Therefore, sometimes Sammaditthi is described to mean the belief in karma, karma pala and punabhava. Belief in conditional existence, which is subject to anicca, dukkha and anatta, lead the people to three kinds of right thoughts or right aspiration, namely detachment, which is opposed to the attachment to the sense pleasure, goodwill or loving kindness, which is opposed to ill will, and nonviolence or harmlessness, which is opposed to cruelty. This second constituent factor of the Noble Eightfold Path represent the mind setup of the people who had the right view. Now we can consider the attitude of the person with the right view towards worldly matters. He has no excessive attachment to sensory pleasure, and he is full of compassion and loving kindness. He has no competition with others. The third constitutional factor of the Noble Eightfold Path says to us how much a person speaks to others. He abstains from false speech. He speaks the truth, holds to the truth, is firm, reliable, and no deceiver of the world. He abstains from decisive speech. What he has heard here, he does not tell here to break those people apart from these people here. What he has heard here, he does not tell here to break these people apart from those people here. Thus, reconciling those who have broken apart or eliminating those who are united. He loves concord, delights in concord, enjoys concord, and speaks things that create concord. He abstains from abusive speech. He speaks words that are soothing to the ear, that are affectionate, that go to the heart, that are polite, appealing, and pleasing to people at large. He further abstains from idle chatter. He speaks in season, speaks what is factual, what is following the goal, the Dhamma and the Vinaya. He speaks words worth treasuring, seasonable, reasonable, circumscribed, and connected with the goal. The fourth constituent factor tells us how such a person behaves in society. He abstains from taking of life. He dwells with his rod laid down, his knife laid down, scrupulous, merciful, and compassionate for the welfare of all living beings. Abstain from taking what is not given. He takes only what is given, accepts only what is given, and lives not by stealthy but by means of a self that has become pure. He refrains from sexual misconduct and he is satisfied with his spouse. The fifth constituent factor of the Noble Eightfold Path explains how a person should maintain his livelihood. Livelihood refers to the economic aspect of a person. In many discourses, the Buddha has pointed out the way how a person should have a sound economy. Buddhism acknowledges that people in any society must acquire their wealth production through persistent effort. In different discourses, the Buddhist teaching emphasizes the human being individually or collectively should engage devotedly and enthusiastically in earning their livelihood. In addition, Buddhism also recognizes four conditions through which a household can realize successful economic production that lead to wealth and happiness in life. As pointed out in the Digajanu Vyaggapaja Sutta, these four conditions are accomplishment of persistent effort, Utthana Sampada, accomplishment of watchfulness, Arakka Sampada, good friendship, Kalyana Mittata, and balanced life, Samajivikata. The Buddha recognized these not as conditions but as accomplishments, successes or fortunes, sampada. This means that whatever human beings are blessed to have these conditions, they would be able to achieve wealth and happiness. The significance of these conditions for success in the life of people can be anticipated by naming them as accomplishment or fortune. Not only in the production of wealth, but also in the consumption of wealth, there is a proper way to be implemented. The Buddha explains the proper way of consumption. With wealth, the person makes himself happy and properly maintain himself in happiness. He makes his parents happy and properly maintain them in happiness. He makes his wife and children, his slaves, workers, and servants happy and properly maintain them in happiness. He makes his friends and colleagues happy and properly maintain them in happiness. If the members of the society follow these five constituent factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, there is no doubt living in such a society is a blessing. There cannot be any social injustice, and the people do not experience social suffering. The remaining factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are mainly directed towards the achievement of the cessation of individual suffering. Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, and Samma Samadhi lead to the complete destruction of craving, tanhakaya, with which a person may attain the ultimate happiness, which is known as Nibbana. So, from this explanation, it is quite evident that the Buddhism quite relevant to the modern social society, to the people who are in a social society, global society. The Buddhist way presented by the Buddha, as mentioned in the Noble Eightfold Path, lead to the cessation of both social suffering and the individual suffering. Especially in the section of social teachings, the Buddha emphasizes how the people should work for the benefit of the society. So Buddha criticized the discrimination among the people. So at the time of the Buddha, in the Indian society, there was a kind of discrimination based on the birth, that is the caste system. In different discourses, the Buddha criticized that discrimination and pointed out the equal nature of the all human beings. So there is no reason to discriminate one as superior or as one inferior. So this kind of social teaching quite compatible with the modern global society. So there are different social teachings which are aimed at social integration, social harmony, social well-being, and happiness. All those social teachings presented by the Buddha, we can apply easily to the present global society. Therefore, no one can say the Buddhist teachings is not effective or meaningful to the modern global society, because the nature of the human being are similar anywhere, in any time, without the difference of time and space. So I think I have explained the compatibility of the teachings of the Buddha with the modern society. So it is our duty to make the modern society as a happier place for all beings to live in the happy moods. So I think if we follow those Buddhist directions, there is no doubt our society will be something like heaven, because there is no suffering created by the people through their bad activities. All the people individually become good then uh, there is no any problem arising in the society. Uh, so I conclude my talk, uh, wishing you all the best. Thank you very much. Yes, is there any question?
Thank you, Professor Kapila, for this educational presentation on Buddhism and global society. I am sure our Dhamma friends around the world would benefit today from this talk, and I'm sure that they will also like to hear more from you, from more topics. Considering that you are a resourceful and knowledgeable person in Buddhist studies and Western philosophy, again, thank you. And it's very interesting topic. Now, dear Dhamma friends, we will take up your questions, and I encourage you to post them through the Dhamma USA YouTube channel or Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much. There are some questions.
Yes.
Uh,
So we
One question
have,
is, what do you think of the various misconceptions about Buddhism in our countries? How do we save or practice the true teachings? Hmm. So it is true. It is one of the great problem prevailing everywhere in the countries where Buddhism is established. In the present, at the time of the Buddha, there was prevailing some misconception with regard to Buddhism, Buddhist doctrine. In the Mahatanna Sankhya Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya, the one monks held the view that consciousness running through the samsara, that is quite against with the Buddhist doctrine. So the Buddha criticized him and blamed him not to hold such a misconception. In the same way that there are, even in Sri Lanka, now day by day increase in the amount of the people who are presenting, distorting the true Dhamma. So, but there is no system in Buddhism to prevent that type of misconception going against the true Buddhist doctrine. Though we have the monastic order, even the chief monks of the monastic order who are responsible for protecting the sadhana, protecting the Dhamma, they are also not taking action against those activities. It is a very bad thing if that type of activities increase. It is no doubt that very quickly the people cannot uh, distinguish what is true Buddhism and what is the false, wrong views. Uh, but for this purpose, it is the better way that we have to learn through the original sources, the Dhamma, and we can get the help from some scholarly, genuine monks like our Venerable Sumitta. Uh, so, so when we can approach them and ask, present the question to get the right answers. So that is the way we can protect the true teachings. Is there any other question?
So it looks like, let's see, that's all the questions for today.
No, any
So
other question, no?
no any other questions.
Yes.
So with that, we conclude today's weekly guest lecture. And I would like to invoke blessings upon Professor Kapila Abhayawansa for kindly accepting our invitation to this series of talks. And oh, I think there's another question.
Another question, yes.
Yes, question. Okay.
Question is, what is the difference between
Ren- renunciation
renunciation
and
and
non-attachment.
non-attachment? Non-attachment means detachment, no? Renunciation and the non-attachment or detachment has no difference. The same thing is presented in two terms. Renunciation means giving up sensual pleasure. Attachment also the same meaning. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you are welcome.
You're
If
welcome
you
to
ask the
post any other
question.
questions.
Yes. Any question you can ask relating to our discussion or in any field of Buddhism. It seems that no
Yeah, it looks
question.
like that's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello,
So
Professor.
Yes, Bante.
Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture today. I think what we were discussing about the global community and
Yes.
lot of challenges are there
Yes,
regarding,
yes, that is true.
regarding Buddhism, and like we have our own challenges. I think like traditional Buddhist countries have their own challenges, and
Yes, that is true. In
propagating Buddhism in the new world. So,
yes,
what do you think, as a professor from a reputed, a renowned university, working for so long? We also see young generation have also been afflicted with many problems. So, what do you think? Like, let's say, like the university students. So,
regarding what do you, Bante?
how do we apply Buddhist teachings to make our younger generation maybe more
Yes,
towards peaceful and happy lifestyle rather
yes,
than more aggressive or sometimes we see like a lot of quarrelsome situations, fightings.
yes, yes, yes.
What
So
do you
that is,
think as a professor from a reputed university in both Thailand and Sri Lanka?
yes, yes. So uh, the Bante Sumit pointed out the true situation. Really, uh, though Buddhism is more popular, it is hard to see people are really practicing Buddhism. So that is why we mainly present the social teachings presented by the Buddha to our students, especially uh, the social teachings are very important uh, uh, for to have a peaceful and happier society. So we mostly emphasize uh, to the student of ours mm, to have a true knowledge about those teachings which are applicable to the society, and so we must give them the understanding when we apply those teachings to the society, uh, uh, what kind of result can be achieved, how they are meaningful in the society. So that is the way we have to, in the traditional way, uh, so we are explaining more things to our uh, uh, followers, uh, not the important factors uh, given in the teachings of the Buddha. So, if we want to have a happier life, peaceful life, we must have some qualities. Those qualities must be cultivated in the life of in our life. So we have to highlight those important qualities. So then only we can understand the value of Buddhism also. Otherwise, if we go to the deep doctrinal aspect to the normal lay people, uh, they forget what is important and they neglect what is important even in Buddhism, but take some uh, some uh, meaningless teaching, useless teaching. So therefore, I think it is better for us to uh, pay more attention to the social aspect of the social teachings of the Buddha, because uh, even the modern socialist, uh, before they think about the qualities should be practiced in the society, the Buddha has pointed out them how to make social integration, uh, how to avoid the social discrimination, and uh, how to develop our attitude to the uh, equality of the people. So those are the very important factors to be applied in the society. So that is the way I think we must pay attention to these factors. So there is another question. We see too many uh, rituals rather than the true practice. How do we reach out to the younger generation with real Dhamma message? Hmm. Yes, it is one of the most prominent aspects in our Buddhist countries. Uh, People are reluctant to pay their attention to the proper useful teachings of the Buddha. They do not, they are not reluctant to practice all those important things, but they pay more attention to the ritual aspect. So when we consider ritual aspect in Buddhism, uh, in the real sense, they are useless. But unfortunately, the present people are interested with useless things, not the important essential things. there are a lot of essential things to be practiced by the people. The Buddha presented all those things, but mostly even our monastic members compel other people to uh, practice ritualist aspect. So, uh, but it is the nature of the religion. But Buddhism is not a religion in the sense that people uh, uh, present the prayers to invoke the blessing of the supernatural being. The Buddhism does not accept such supernatural being who can protect the people. Even in my lesson, I pointed out Attano Loko, uh, Attano Loko Anabhistaro. There is no protector. But because of the influence of other religions, like from the very long time, Buddhism uh, developed and Buddhism prevailed in the midst of Hindu religion. Most of the Hindu practice increased into the Buddhism. The people uh, were more interested in those aspects. It is something like the hug of the tree, the essential part. We have to value the essential part, not the skin. So we have to remove those parts and we have to practice the very important part into our life. Then the people realize what is the importance of those important part of the dharmic or doctrinal part of the teaching of the Buddha and how we can get the good result in our life. But practicing rituals, so we cannot get nothing really in the real sense. What is this? How to deal with the poor
Family member.
family members who harbors it will towards my Buddhist practice because of their Christian religion. How do deal with family members who harbors ill will towards my Buddhist practice because of their Christian religion. Hmm. So really we have to practice our loving kindness and compassion. That is the way we can remove them. Then we practice all those good qualities. We know cardinal virtues in Buddhism, metta, karuna, mudita, upekka. Then uh, those people who influence your life, they also understand the value of your uh, your attitude that you are paying toward them. So then we have to show them our valuable things. Then they also will accept those valuable qualities that you practice.
Okay. I think
Okay.
this is pretty it. So let us keep our palms together, close to our heart, and pray that by the power of all the Dana, Sila, and Bhavan activities that we all have performed during our lifetime and during our whole course of samsara become one united power, and may this power be shared with all the celestial beings, including respectful brahmas and devas, and may all sentient beings receive this merit and share this merit, and may they be all be happy and healthy wherever they are. May all uh, our departed ones also receive this merit and be well, happy, and healthy wherever they are. May all of us be able to live life peacefully, comfortably, and in good health. May all of us and all sentient beings be able to attain the supreme bliss of nirvana, the absolute peace and happiness at the end of our samsara. Thingy those, please keep your palms together close to your heart and say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu.
sadhu. Thank you.
Thank you.